我が艦の重大責任が搭乗員に放送されたとき、When our important mission was announced to the crew, I knew they were prepared to fight. But each man knew that the battle to eat or to be eaten had begun.
In 1942, Yahashi Tanabe was a lieutenant commander and the skipper of the Japanese submarine I-168. Today, he manages a small paper products factory in Japan. In 1942, George T. Edwards was a sailor in the United States Navy, assigned to the carrier Yorktown. He lives today in Southern California and runs a charter boat service.
You might say you're damn worried or scared, but when the fighting starts, you lose that tense feeling. Once the game starts, you're in pretty good shape.
Off the island of Midway, the lives of Yahashi Tanabe and George Edwards came together for a brief moment. Two fighting men, one Japanese, one American, relived that moment in history. I'm Jim Bishop. For the Japanese, the capture of Midway Island is the whole point of their second great offensive. They have already blasted Pearl Harbor, the main link in the chain of Hawaiian islands. Now they are about to step on the end of the chain, Midway. But the planned attack on Midway has an even bigger purpose. It is the Japanese bait to lure what is left of the American Navy into one final battle. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Commander-in-Chief of the Japanese Combined Fleet, is convinced that Japan must win the war within the first year or lose it later. He is also certain that if he can destroy the American fleet in a decisive battle, the war is won. The Japanese assume that the American fleet will be drawn out to defend Midway Island, the guardian outpost of Hawaii. The objectives call for a diversionary attack on the Aleutians, the invasion of Midway, and luring the American fleet into battle. A powerful force is hastily assembled at ports in and around Japan. Spearheading this fleet is an advanced expeditionary force of submarines. Late in May, submarine I-168 heads eastward. In command is a 37-year-old graduate of the Japanese Naval Academy, Commander Yahashi Tanabe.
We are assigned a very important mission. Our orders read, the combined fleet will attempt to capture the island of Midway as of June 6. Submarine I-168 shall proceed secretly to the vicinity of Midway to observe and report all enemy movements. We will be near Midway when the troops land. According to the basic plan, we are to see no action.
American strategy is based on the assumption that Japan has chosen Midway as a target. This has been confirmed by American cryptologists who have broken the Japanese Purple Code. With the advantage of knowing the Japanese plans, Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz sets the trap. Midway Island is strengthened with bombers. After the Japanese have been located by the land-based Midway forces, they are to be hit by planes from the hidden American carriers. Task Force 16, comprising the last two operational carriers, Hornet and Enterprise, are called north at top speed. The day before the American force sails, the carrier Yorktown, damaged in the Coral Sea, limps into Pearl Harbor. Aboard the Yorktown since 1939 is Seaman George Edwards, assigned to Torpedo Squadron 5.
We've been at sea 104 days this time, and we're returning with quite a bit of damage. The 1,000-pounder went clear through the third deck and exploded. When we move into the yards, there is a lot of scuttlebutt about this thing with Midway. Whatever we might be thinking, everybody just bears a hand. Nobody leaves the ship, not even the old man.
It is estimated that repairs will take 90 days, but with the battle imminent, 1,400 workers complete the job in 2 days. The hastily repaired Yorktown leads a second task force to sea. May 31st, the American task forces reach Point Luck, a position 300 miles northeast of Midway. The officers and men are told an attack for the purpose of capturing Midway is expected. The successful conclusion of the operation now commencing will be of great value to our country.
We move up very close to the mouth of the bay and make observations of the land installation and the movement of the troops. It appears that the enemy is patrolling the neighboring seas.
June 3rd, a lone Catalina bomber from Midway spots the Japanese invasion transports. The report is radioed in and a flight of B-17s are ordered out. First encounters caused little damage among the Japanese fleet. At 4:30 a.m. June 4th, the Japanese launched their attack against the Midway Atoll, only 240 miles distant. The first wave of planes leaves in rapid succession from the flight decks of Kaga, Hiryu, Soryu, and Akagi. The Battle of Midway has begun. Although forewarned of the raid, 26 Marine fighters are no match for the superior Zeros. 24 are shot down or badly damaged.
My crew grows more and more excited as I describe the action to them. Shouts of joy echo throughout the submarine.
The attack lasts only 20 minutes. It has wrecked most of the marine facilities, but causes only minor damage to the airstrips. The Japanese conclude that Midway requires one more strike before invasion. June 4th, 7 a.m. Torpedo planes crowd the flight decks of the 4 Japanese carriers. With the report indicating Midway needs a second pounding, bombs are ordered substituted for torpedoes. At this very moment, the first American planes take off against the unsuspecting Japanese. 28 minutes later, a Japanese scout plane reports 2 American warships 200 miles from Midway. Later, a second report is received, one that surprises the Japanese commanders. The American forces are accompanied by an aircraft carrier. While the Japanese hesitate, American torpedo planes arrive and attack.
Mayday, mayday. I'm ditching.
They got Sherman.
Cover the people.
Bail out.
Mother
The
carrying
wingman's
it.
down.
You can hear the whole battle over the ship's PA system. You can hear the guys talking about what plane they're in. The whole thing. It's almost like being there with them, especially when you know the guys personally. You hear the communications from one plane to another.
2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Watch it.
Control panel.
The Japanese carriers are attacked. The American bombers are without the protection of fighters. Of the 15 planes from Hornet, 4 are shot down. Of the 12 Yorktown torpedo planes, 10 are lost. Of the 14 planes from Enterprise, only 4 survive. The Japanese quickly prepare their counterattack. At this moment, dive bombers from Enterprise and Hornet make their attack. They have approached the target unopposed, as the Japanese fighters have not had time to regain altitude from the torpedo attack. Akagi is hit, and bombs and ammunition aboard explode. Bombs hit Kaga, knocking out the bridge and penetrating the hangars. The third Japanese carrier, Soryu, is left a blazing inferno. Within a matter of minutes, a handful of American pilots have knocked out 3 Japanese aircraft carriers. Now, only one carrier, Hiryu, is left. Rear Admiral Yamaguchi of Hiryu immediately orders a strike against the American carriers. Zeros and dive bombers from Hiryu follow the returning American planes to the Yorktown.
They're getting closer. You feel tense. There's quite a strain in your stomach. Your mouth gets dry, and then you see them. Yorktown has caught fire in her stack, and they secured the boilers. knocked in the side and hard hit. The word comes through to abandon ship. I'm kind of stunned. I never thought I'd have to leave under these conditions. And I say to one of my shipmates, well, we're going to have to swim for it now.
p.m. American planes from Enterprise come in out of the sun and attack. Four direct hits are scored, and Hiryu was out of action. Admiral Yamamoto orders a general retreat.
Frightening news has come to us over our radio antenna. The Soryu and Kaga have been sunk. Also, the Akagi and Hiryu. When I hear this news, a mixture of anger, disappointment, and fighting spirit boils within me. I have received order. It says, as a result of the attack of our Air Force, a Yorktown-sized carrier is afloat at a point approximately 150 miles northeast of Midway. Submarine I-168 shall move immediately to capture or sink it.
I volunteered for the damage control party, and I'm back on board, seeing what I can do to get her back to Pearl. The Hammond stays alongside to furnish power and necessary equipment. The first thing we do is load our guns and get everything ready in case of another attack. The next thing we do is bury our dead. The old man gives the orders to fire the boilers. We'll get back to Pearl under our own power if we have to burn all the furniture in the officers' quarters.
My lookout sights the Yorktown. His voice is shaking with joy. Sees a black shape on the horizon. Inside the I-168 is limited to only the most essential ones. I fear to create sounds which American detectors might pick up, but I have privately decided that the enemy's equipment is not very sensitive. This gives me confidence as the range shortens. lower the periscope. The torpedo's wake will soon indicate their course. If the I-168 is to die, I at least want the satisfaction of seeing that our target has been hit. We must succeed. There will be no second chance.
All of a sudden, the Hammond starts firing up the water. I look down and see 10 fingers of torpedo wakes. They're coming right at us. I'm in the water. I'm in pain. The Hammond is cut in two. The depth charges from her decks are exploding in the water. Thank God I'm shielded by the Yorktown.
I order, take her down to 200 feet and full speed ahead.
Throughout the night, American destroyers hunt the submarine without success. It is evident that the Yorktown is doomed. At 6 a.m. on June 7th, she begins to sink.
They have closed the log officially. It is exactly 6 months to the day and the hour when Pearl Harbor was attacked. I'm on a destroyer nearby. There's a man next to me. He spent 30 years in the Navy. He's looking away from the Yorktown and asked me to let him know when she goes down. I think I see tears in his eyes. I thought I was the only one that felt that way.
My heart is filled with a sense of appreciation for my crew. Truly, everyone did well. I feel the kind thoughts of the crew soak throughout my body. I order the Chief Communications Officer to wire the combined fleet. I sank the Yorktown.
Following the Battle of Midway, Commander Yahachi Tanabe returns to Japan a hero. He will survive campaigns at Guadalcanal and the Solomons. Seaman Edwards, wounded after the sinking of the Yorktown, will later participate in 2 Pacific invasions. VJ Day will find him at Yokohama Harbor. At Midway, the Japanese suffered a naval disaster. It was evident that the balance of power in the Pacific had swung suddenly in favor of the Americans. Midway would be known as the battle that marked the turning of the tide in the Pacific War.
の旅の
7 times shall I be reborn, and with each return I shall bear infinite gratitude for my country. Like the brave samurai of the 14th century, Tsunoki Masashige, my spirit will live eternally through my deeds. 7 times shall I be reborn, and with each return I shall bear infinite gratitude for my country.
In 1945, Mitsuo Saeki was an ensign in the Imperial Japanese Naval Air Force. He flew as fighter escort with the dreaded kamikazes on a number of their suicide bombing missions off Okinawa. Today, he is a major in the Japanese Self-Defense Force and is stationed in Tokyo. Hunter Robbins was a lieutenant aboard an American destroyer that engaged in an epic battle against the kamikazes during the Battle of Okinawa. Today, he is an industrial real estate broker in the San Francisco area.
Shooting at the kamikaze planes diving our ships was like throwing potatoes. That's how small was your chance of stopping. You hated to see them coming, but at the same time, you couldn't deny the courage of these pilots.
Off Okinawa in the Western Pacific, the lives of Mitsui Saeki and Hunter Robbins came together for a brief moment. 2 fighting men, 1 Japanese, 1 American, relive that moment in history. I'm Jim Bishop. The road to Japan, as far as the Americans were concerned, consisted of giant steps from Guadalcanal to New Guinea, to Guam, to Mindanao, to Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Okinawa is only 350 miles from the main Japanese islands. It was essential to carry out the bombing that would finish the empire. The Japanese High Command said, here the rise or fall of Imperial Japan will be decided. Running generally north and south, Okinawa is 60 miles long and from 2 to 18 miles wide. It is mountainous in the north. The south is mostly rolling hills, honeycombed with cliffs and caves. The invasion of this island poses problems not encountered in previous island assaults by the Americans. Okinawa lies within easy flying range of planes based in Japan. While American transport and supply are stretched farther than ever before, the Japanese supply lines are short. There can be no surprise. The Japanese know, and the Americans know they know. An attack on Okinawa is imminent. Most of Japan's flyers and planes in China and Southeast Asia have been ordered back to the homeland. 1 pilot returning from Singapore is Ensign Mitsuo Saeki.
私は中島基地から I have been ordered to report from Nakajima to Kagoshima Airdrome in Kyushu. On our way, my comrades and I passed Tokyo. Much of the city is destroyed from firebombings. We vow to fight the enemy to the death for what he has done to our homeland. When we arrive at Kagoshima, I am assigned to a fighter squadron. We are given both defensive and offensive assignments. We are to fight as interceptors against American B-25 and B-29 bombers. Later, we will fly escort for the kamikaze attack that will stop the American invaders. Kamikaze means divine wind. It comes from the 13th century when Japan was threatened by a Mongol invasion. Just as the enemy fleet approached our shores, a divine storm destroyed every ship and so preserved our land. To this day, Nippon has never been invaded, nor will it ever be. Again, the divine wind is with us. This time, it will strike with planes and bombs. I was on Cebu in the Philippines when the Kamikaze Corps was first organized. I wanted very much to volunteer for this sacred duty. But since I was not a veteran pilot, the honor could not be mine. Now I wish to volunteer again. I am told I cannot. Pilots with my experience are needed more for fighter duty. Only the new men are assigned to kamikaze training.
Kyushu, the southernmost island of Japan proper, is turned into a huge complex of air bases. Fighter squadrons are rushed there to provide fighter escort for the planned kamikaze attacks on American warships around Okinawa. The kamikaze pilots, too, are on Kyushu in training for their divine mission. Kamikaze attack is not new to the Americans. They received their first trial by suicide during the Battle of Leyte Gulf. The weapon is not extraordinary, but the will behind it is. March 1945. Admiral Mark Mitscher's Carrier Task Force 58 sails to within 100 miles of Kyushu and sets out to neutralize Japanese air power on that island. The next day, the Japanese strike back hard, using both standard and kamikaze bombing techniques. Is knocked out of commission. The carrier Wasp and destroyer Halsey Power are seriously damaged. Suffering less serious damage are the carriers Enterprise and Yorktown. 737 Americans are killed, 563 wounded. The Japanese lose heavily too. American pilots claim 528 kills. Task Force 58 has succeeded in its purpose. Kyushu-based planes won't be able to strike back in strength for 2 weeks. U.S. forces preparing for Okinawa are aware their biggest danger will come from these human bombs. Kamikaze is topic number one throughout the American Pacific Fleet. Aboard the U.S. destroyer Hugh W. Hadley is Communications Officer Lieutenant Hunter Robbins, a veteran of the Pacific War since Guadalcanal.
We're escorting a convoy heading for the Caroline Islands. Our ship is spanking new, commissioned just 2 months ago and loaded with anti-aircraft guns. We feel lucky to have a crew made up of destroyer veterans from both the Atlantic and Pacific. Name any battle fought in this war, and somebody on board's been in it. Our skipper's name is Baron Joseph Mullaney. What I particularly like is that he's not the nervous Aunt Nellie type that can't make decisions under pressure. Our gunnery officer is another Irishman, Patrick Henry McGann from Sandusky, Ohio. Pat and I did Liberty together before leaving Pearl. It was a rather fatalistic night. Pat kept saying, "We're not coming back from this one. No, sirree, we're not coming back." But I kind of suspect it was just an excuse for us to have another drink. We've dropped anchor off Ulithi Atoll. Something big's in the making. The large number of ships here spells that. Back in the rough days at Guadalcanal, the entire American fleet in the Pacific consisted of no more than 36 ships. Now it runs into the thousands.
Late March. The Okinawan invasion force under command of Admiral Raymond A. Spruance has assembled in 3 staging areas, at Leyte, Saipan, and Ulithi. More than 500,000 servicemen, over 300 warships, and more than 1,100 troop transports and auxiliary vessels are drawn into the operation. General Simon Bolivar Buckner, commander of the 10th Army, heads the ground forces. These consist of the 24th Army Corps and the 3rd Amphibious Marine Corps. Counting the reserves, 183,000 troops in all. The greatest expeditionary force of the entire Pacific War sets sail for Okinawa. Awaiting them on that island is the Japanese 32nd Army, commanded by Lieutenant General Mitsuru Oshijima. 80,000 regular Army troops plus 20,000 conscripted Okinawans. And in the air, the dreaded kamikaze. In the early hours of Easter Sunday, April 1st, the Central Pacific Task Forces stand off the shores of Okinawa, poised to invade that island, the last major stepping stone before Japan itself. It is L-Day, Landing Day. American soldiers and Marines quickly establish an 8-mile-long beachhead on the west coast. Japanese resistance is surprisingly light. By midday, the jubilant invaders have a new name for L-Day, Love Day. Before nightfall, the invaders have captured 2 airfields and in 2 days have crossed the island. Resistance is still minor. The biggest problem, the housing and care of thousands of Okinawan civilians, women, children, and old men. Except for a pocket of resistance on the Motobu Peninsula, the northern and central portions of Okinawa fall quickly, as does most of the south. But when the attackers reach the southern eighth of the island, their romp turns into a painful crawl. They have reached General Oshijima's line of defense, the Nahashuri-Yonabaru line.
We've been on general quarters since early this morning, and it's surprising that no enemy planes have come around. Still, nobody's relaxing. And already I can feel that old tension starting to mount between us. Just one wrong word from somebody and you're ready to jump all over them.
Only this morning, news reached us that Americans have converged on Okinawa. The first flight of kamikaze has its orders. Aircraft carriers are #1 target. Second, all ships with troops, then battleships and cruisers. If every kamikaze destroys 1 ship, then even with 10,000 ships, the enemy cannot hope to win. Every kamikaze pilot is spiritually prepared, confident he can destroy the enemy. In dying, he knows that his body may disappear, but not his spirit. The spirit lives on, continues from generation to generation like a noble light, giving to every man the courage to fight for emperor and country.
April 6th, 699 Japanese planes, more than half of them kamikaze, roared down on the U.S. fleet off Okinawa.
Sure, there are frightening aspects to this kind of attack, but I personally tend to discount that it is sheer fanaticism. It's a tool of battle, and men will resort to it whenever they feel it necessary to turn the tide in their favor. Colin Kelly did the very same thing when he crashed his plane into a Japanese warship early in the war.
At day's end, 2 destroyers, a high-speed mine layer, and an LST are sunk. Damaged, the light aircraft carrier San Jacinto, 10 destroyers, 2 destroyer escorts, a mine layer, 4 minesweepers, and 2 smaller vessels. The Kamikaze Corps has delivered its most fearsome blow so far. A thrill of hope courses through the Japanese military. The Kamikaze, like the earlier Divine Wind, will blast the enemy out of the sea.
More kamikaze are ready. Both the Imperial Army and Navy have joined in Special Attack Forces designated Kikusui, symbolized by the banner of Kusunoki, the loyal samurai retainer. This morning, I went to bid farewell to a friend from my province. I offered him some botamochi, made of rice and wrapped in sugar and beans. He refused it, saying, I must keep myself fit for my mission. Finally, we shook hands, and I asked if there was any last message for his mother. He said, no, I am going, and my mother knows. What more is there? All I could reply was, I will follow you soon. 3 hours later, he was dead.
On April 11th and 12th, the Japanese launched their second Kikusui attack with 185 planes.
We also have a new type weapon, a flying bomb, which we call Oka, or cherry blossom. It is carried to the target by a bomber, then launched with a pilot. Like a tender blossom, this bomb will burst for a moment in shining glory, then perish forever. But the brave deed shall live on, just as the spirit of Kusunoki lives on.
Naval intelligence has told us about the glider bombs the Japanese are using, capable of coming in at 500 miles an hour. Our sailors call them baka bombs. Baka means fool. But again, I can't help but admire the courage of the enemy.
The Americans who have grown overconfident early in the Okinawa campaign are serious now. At sea, the kamikaze is dealing a fiery hand of death. On land, Ushijima's troops are holding firm. While the ground forces battle evenly, warships of the U.S. fleet act as overpowering mobile artillery. The defenders have nothing to match this.
Orders were received for our ship to take over as fighter direction ship on the picket line. Word came through Fleet Circuit that our sister ship, the Aaron Ward, absorbed 6 suicide hits this morning. She was out at post number 7 on the picket line, our defense perimeter 60 miles north of Okinawa. Apparently, the kamikaze are going after the first ships they spot, so every ship on the picket line is catching hell.
The big question now, can the supporting fleet hold out against the damaging kamikaze attacks? Ranking naval officers are grateful that the kamikaze expends most of its fury on the picket outposts, instead of on the capital ships and troop transports off the beaches of Okinawa.
Last night, American bombers raided Honshu with firebombs. My squadron had success in shooting down 2 planes. We have slept only 3 hours when orders come to escort more kamikaze to Okinawa. These pilots are younger now. They have very little training and fly recklessly. We fighter pilots feel sorry for them, but we also joke about it. When someone in our squadron makes a bad maneuver, we all say, "You're right for the kamikaze corps." We laugh, for we know that sooner or later, all of us will die fighting. The important thing is to make each death count.
We've been on the line less than 6 hours. I'm in the ship's combat information center checking the radar screen. A formation of bogies is heading right for us.
light is approaching the range of enemy ships. We spot American fighters coming from below. The kamikaze planes and Oka bombs strike for the first possible target. And my squadron turns to meet the enemy fighters.
On May 11th, 150 Japanese planes take part in the 6th Kikuchi raid. About one-third of these attack picket post number 15, which is occupied by the destroyers Evans and Hadley and 4 small landing craft.
We've taken a hit smack in the middle, and all communications are out. Fire is threatening us. McGann and his boys keep up the ack-ack fire. The second bogey is dead on us, and everyone dives for cover. The last kamikaze to hit us plowed right through my bunk. When we finally clear the mess, we find a young pilot practically on top of his engine. He couldn't have been more than 19. His sacrifice cost us 30 dead and 60 wounded.
The Evans and Hadley are both knocked out of battle, but they claim to have taken 37 Japanese planes with them. 37 planes is a cheap price for the Japanese to pay for 2 powerful warships. As wild-eyed and fanatical as the kamikaze concept of war appears, it's the only chance the Japanese have left. On June 24th, the 6th Marine Division makes an amphibious attack on the Oraku Peninsula to cut off thousands of Japanese, killing 5,000. At last, the defenders begin to surrender. The mop-up begins. July 2nd, the Okinawa campaign is declared ended. Mitsuo Saiki piloted a fighter plane till the end of the war. On VJ Day, like millions of his countrymen, he found it difficult to believe that it was over. Hunter Robbins received a Bronze Star for his part in saving trapped seamen aboard the Hadley after it was struck by a kamikaze. He remained with the stricken ship as it was towed across the Pacific to the United States, where it was decommissioned. The Americans suffered 49,151 battle casualties in taking Okinawa. The Japanese lose approximately 110,000 dead or missing, nearly 100,000 on land alone. The Okinawa campaign filled the victors with just about as much foreboding as it did the losers. If the Japanese contested this island so bitterly, how much harder would they fight in defense of their homeland? The question became academic when the A-bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okinawa was the last battle of World War II.